So we began with the Biur Beneged to Toihu V'Tikun, how they are the two Shemas, the two Tzirufi Shemas of the Shemavaya, Ma Uban. And we saw that the movement was a movement kloli, that B'chol Mokeh Ma is a yin from Bittel, V'Gilui Elakus, Gilui Hamoya. But Iluban is the way that the Elakus is Mamtzi Mimeno, Inim which is saying Magish Makoira Kamoy Ma. And it's a Inim from Yerida into eventually Yeshua Matthias. And so we saw that that's the difference between Toyo Vatikun and the Indian of Toyo we saw was the Indian of Ban. And therefore the Spheres in Toyo are called Malachim, Malkin, the Zayin Malkin, the Toyo, because the Nakuda of Malchus we saw was Teikef Yeshus. So we'll see as we go along more delicate interpretation, but Derech Proteus and Biur, what do we mean by the fact that Malchus is Yeshus? Because we'll see that there are different, we find them in different suge or different ways that the Malchus can express itself in the form of Yeshus, and yet not necessarily be the union of Yeshus the way we understand it as a negative union. However, what we mean by Yeshus is the union of Teikif HaBitui, in other words, that a thing which expresses itself B'chol HaTeikif, and what you might call an insistence on the takeoff of its own being. Now that's the Indian of Malchus. So Kumuvan Bapashtas, that a king can't be just a little, how do you call it, nobody. He's not able to be a little Gornish the king. He has to be B'takeoff Matthias, in that all others are B'teli Milo, and Sorim Lamishpat with all in we find Beneged to Amela. And that's what we the Kavona, that we say that the Midas or the Inyonim, the spheres, the Toyo even of Malach, Malkin, Malchus, or the Kavona is to say two Inyonim. The one is that we at the beginning of Tosam Zayin, that they weren't able to be nice and mokim to another midah. They weren't able to sort of find in themselves an ability to give place to something else. But uid, and even more than that, shaloi hoyu yechilim or loy yochel lisbeo klal es midas hakavura. But for now, it's much more that it's two svaras or two inyonim. That if I say that something just has no place by me, then it's not necessarily that I couldn't be saved at club. It's just that it doesn't fit my what you might call my whole seder of chashivas and kiruvelai club. It's just that over next year the klum. There's no place by me whatsoever. And therefore I don't give it any place. In Teifus, as you might say, Shum Mokim Etzli. I would say, and that's mitzad Choysa HaYachas v'Choysa HaChashivas. And albeit mitzad the what you might call Chashivas of the Matthias of the Mevatel. But if you say Leinam Yochel Yochelim Seivo, I can't say that. If I say that the Pliny is not able to be Seivo in Pliny, then that means that it's Mamish Mafrieloi. And Lorach Mafrieloi, but he's Managid to it by him because that he wants to take it off the table. He wants to be Shadel at Metzia. Because if you say he will Managid Lazarsk, also, yes, a certain moderation. But if you say Eina Yochel Lisboil, that if you can't be saved or something, then you're basically chofetz b'bitula. If you say can't be saved, then you want it to be oitz. However, we're going to find in Toyu both in Yonim. The Ike is that it's going to be an azar even of not being giving mokim to another Indian, which will lead and evolve it being not saved the other Indian. Because maybe we can imagine a situation where you mightn't be nice and mokim to dvarim acherim, but not necessarily that you would be not saved them. Yeah. Over here, we're developing a picture or a view whereby the not giving mokim to something is going to lead and bring to it to be mamish not nisbal by the Eina Neisa mokim. And we're going to see that that's a very delicate difference. And so hidden in that sentence is really the whole basis from what we're going to begin the biur in Toyu. V'lochein v'hechreach, says the Rebbe, shenishbara v'nistalke midas. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, kumoi kasher. I'm sorry. Kumoi kasher nimshach sfiras hachesed loinos nomakim klal lemidas hagvura v'oid. And more than that, shloya yochel lisboil klal es midas hagvura. Tu inyan v'lochein v'hechreach shenishbaro v'nistalke midas hachesed bichdei shiyeh midas hagvura. In other words, the vibal that one is not saved the other cloud, and that the loy nasinas mokim is even shall built in this bow. If I want to, as it were, have both of them together, how do you call it? I want to, as you might say, make the town big enough for both of them, then it's not possible, and therefore, to a certain extent, Midas Agura, if you said, listen here, this is we're going to bring you into the picture now, Midas Agura, then Midas Agura will say, fine, but if I come into the picture, then it's only me. It was hard to, there also be Midas HaChesed. Eini Seivel Midas HaChesed. If you want Gvura, but take Hatmuna, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take away and be Mavatal Midas HaChesed. And that's the pshat, that the Eina Neisen Mokim Be'ikar is built around Ainin of Eino Seiva. And therefore said the Rebbe, if I want to bring in the Inyan of Gura, then there must be Nishbara v'nistalke midas hachesed. Now, as we go along, we're going to have to be further doirish in this whole inner nishbara. For what's nishbara? Because it's two expressions, nishbara v'nistalke. So you can say nistalke fits into the pattern we just described. Yeah, nistalke means it. Gvura says, listen here, if you want to bring me in, you've got to take that away. I can't. Eini Seivel Inyan Chesed. Masalkim means to take away its material. But why would we say Nishbara? What's it the Inyan? Why would we say that the Nakuda of not being Seivel also involves the breakage of the other entity? Because look at it. If I say, ain't a seivel, I can't put up with it. I can't. It's just vertrogen, as they say in Yiddish. Please remove that out of the way. Or was it the lotion nishbara? So that we'll have to see also as we go along. We're going to have to be very careful, like all in Yonim, that there's a very delicate couple of messages are hidden here in what looks to be musogim klolim of it. It's a little bit yukka. Erefa, says the Rebbe, v'chein b'midas ha'gvura gabi midas ha'tiferes. That midas ha'gvura is going to have to move and be broken if midas ha'tiferes is going to come into the picture. What if he said? Is that even in Toyu there was midas ha'tiferes. In other words, that even though Tiferes is l'choira a Matthias, which comes mitzad discolours. And if I'm saying that one midah demands that the other midah be broken and removed, then how do you get to Tiferes? In Perek Yud Beis in Igeres HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe Masber, that the whole new Matthias of Tiferes, albeit comes about from a building together of Chesed and Gvura together, albeit Tiferes is another Matthias. Kamo in Lakota Tel, Barik in Pasha Kadeshim, the Alter Rebbe dort Masber. Aber auch upon him Matzenim from Niskalus or Yichud, Shnei Inyonim. And therefore we have to say this is also a Dvar Chidesh, that the Rebbe mentions here the Inyan from Tiferes. No, it's a Dvar Chidesh, but it's a Had Goshem. So we have to say that even in Toihu, there was a certain one-time round, this Kalus. And even though we're using here expressions which imply the absolute, Chila Gvura is saying that if you want me to move in, then I'm sorry, he's got to go. Or you want to bring now into Tiferes, and so he says, well, this one you got right now has got to go. And nonetheless, we have to say that the Ikar in Iskalulas of Tikkun verses 2 is not the etzem minyan that there can be the building of certain midas together in order to reach a toikif muslim of another midah. No, the whole inyan is Iskalulas. And the immediate inyan of Iskalulas, we're going to see also as we go along. And it's also much been the famous Maimah from the Alter Rebbe in the Likutei Torah of Vaheniv. But the Emes of Tikkun and the music of his Iskalulas is not just noise and mokim was there, but mikablim semis. The Emes of Tikkun is not just that they allow one another to be, or the mekabel one from the other. In other words, that the mekabel are pnimias and a shleimas one from the other, ad kedei kach, that one eventually reaches a conclusion that bli Matthias Hasheni ain't loy Matthias. He doesn't have a Matthias, not the Matthias of the Sheni. In other words, the mamish mashlimim, the tachus hashlim is there. That wasn't in Torah. Das nicht gewesen. But there could be what you might call a certain stalris, a certain what you might call moving together of two midas in a way that they could produce another Inyan, but that was here too. In other words, it's mavur in certain Sifrei Kabbalah that in Torah there was what you might call Iskalulas one time, as you might say, one time round. Kol klulim zemizeh פעם אחת, או פעם, כאילו סיבוב אחד. ואילו בתיקון, יצר ויזם הזה, and there's different possibilities, shittas, or ifanim. In Torah would take it up from eser noch, until it reaches the afilo mayas v'chulu. It depends on the Indian, b'mei meduba or b'eise gilui. Milmaila ve'eze kilo naila is nimshach al yidei the suga is kalalas amaduva. And if says the Rebbe, there was a Tiferes, but nonetheless the Tiferes was also even only the necessity of like the stalvers, the two inyanis produce a midah, and once that midah was there, it said if you want to bring me in, then I'm sorry, you can't have the other, but that's not just that the other was bottled by him. Because we're going to see as we go on, if the other is bottled, on the contrary, give it let it be. I mean, if it's bottled, there's a little involvement with cloud. I mean, mazam afreya. Lo yisayva. Listen to the Kudah. The Inyan is that the Reimamas and the Tuikiv of the Yeshus that there was in Tuyu was achazayim that lo yisayvo as Hashem. V'yal kain nema bohem vayomos. I'm sorry, vayomos. Melech ploidi. Ve'achar kach vayim lek ploid. First of all, it's written vayim lek ploid. Then it's written vayomos. He had to die, and then vayim lek plainly after him. Mishum de Beshah shemolach zeh lo yoye be'efshar sheyimloich Hashem. It wasn't just Shaya. Ein malchus noigas bechaverato afiru kimole nimo. It ever one emissary Indian of malchus would be what you might call the taker for the yeshus of malchus can't possibly allow another malchus. One malchus has to stop and then starts another malchus. And I say this in the Seder of King. And the Gemara learns that in Kamar, this is a Loshen, in Kamar Mekemis, in Shas, but the first place where it occurs is...
It's a Tikkun. It's a Midah Tikkun.
That's the emissaries that it's even a Midah in Tikkun. Yeah. Zenachon, because we're talking about kings how they were Malchei Yisrael. So we have to say that that's Indian Afila in Tikkun. Zenachon. But later we'll see that the Indian from Malchus, and that's what I'm pointing out here, is that the difference is very delicate in the form of the Teikef HaYeshes. Understand? That there's going to be a Malchus in Kedusha and in Tikkun, but the Teikef of the Yesh is going to be by from Suk Acher, but even though ein Malchus Neges Bechavata, of Afufikain, the Teitzos will be different. Not in an even from Shvira Cholila. So that was the ein Malchus Neges Bechavata, yeah, Afila, yeah, Kemole Nima. Now where do we learn that from? There's a Gemara, what the Gemara says, by Shmuel mit Shaul. It's interesting, Shaul was the first emes of Melech per se, he was the first king per se. The one who was Melech, Koidem was there was Shmuel, even though Shmuel was only a Shofet, a Novi, when he wasn't Mamish, a Melech, but nonetheless, the Gemara says that for all intents and purposes, the koyach that Shmuel had over Yidden was that of a melech. It was well known. He was how do you call it, Noyeg Malchusi Baromo, Shmuel, very much so. He was sent to. He was told by the Eresh that he has to be Mosheach Shaul. He saw Shaul. Shaul came looking for him because of the Asinus that his father lost the donkeys, and so Shaul went looking for the donkeys. And they said there's a royer, how do you call it, a person that he's like, and so he was told to go looking for Shmuel, and that's what Shmuel said to him, Anoiche HaRoyer. So the Gemara says that he that was a little bit too much. But anyway, whatever. He found him. And then the Eivsha said to Shmuel, this is him. This person has come to ask you. He's going to be the Nogid al Shifta Yisrael. He's going to be the king. So then they go a little bit, just before they actually met Shmuel. That's right. So they asked these women, where's the royer? Where do we meet him? Where do we find him? So these women made a whole big long arichas, and they said, that he comes to eat on the bama, he sits at the top and he eats, but nobody can make a bracha on the zevach until he comes, and then he makes a bracha on the zevach, and then everybody eats, and a whole big arichas, a sipur, just to say that he's in town. So the Gemara asked him, brachas, why does the Nach have to tell me that they said this and they said that, they said something else? Could this be written? They asked where's Shmuel? They went up to meet him. So the Gemara says, Malamit she'ein Malchus Neigas Bechavata Afilum Kemole Nima, that since Shmuel was about to give over his Malchus to Shaul, then the Vice states that he still had a few extra minutes of his Malchus to go, and these women sort of filled it in by being Marek and their Loshen, detailing a hin and a her, that sort of filled in the last few minutes. As I said to Gemara, there was a few more minutes of Shmuel's Malchus was still left. They had to hear this whole readers from the Weibelach, Kedei to listen that if you go up into the town, you'll find Shmuel. They state in the Gemara. Lefisha, come to this. Yeah, that each Malchus comes up to a certain point and then stop, and then starts a new Malchus. What, as rightfully pointed out, we're only using that for the time being, but again to the etzem inyan, the teikev hayeshes that there is in Malucha, not to the difference between that inyan and Malucha, how it's going to be in Tikkun. We'll see. That's totally in certain sporas dakis b'yesa. V'yal came, says the Rebbe. Ein malchus neges b'chad v'hedgai. The mishum inyan hayeshes. Now, once again, we're only using the word yeses at the moment without a tremendous amount of moral biur. What to say that a king has to be and is a koyach of yeses. Shezeh inyan amalucha. The tuich of his being and of the expression of his being are actually inyan of malucha. Otherwise, he's not a melech, as we pointed out before. It can't be two. And that's the whole famous Sikha, the Rebbe was marich in the famous Sikha, that how come David HaMelech was Mamlik Shlomo, and then he continued being the Melech for a short while, and Shlomo was ordered the Melech. You can't have there's also another lotion, that ain't Shnei Malachim, Mishtamshim Bekesa Echel, and I can't Aricha said the Rebbe's got this whole big beer that was a hero show, and that really Malchus Shlomo began from that moment. But nonetheless, David was still a whole big Aricha Sayina. I can't pilfer for them, a very famous Sikha. Because you can't have it. You can't have two kings. You can't have the Malchus of kings being Noige one and the other. When one finishes, the other one. The other one starts. You might say, well, maybe David HaMelech stopped from that moment. We've seen. He wasn't the king anymore. But we see that he still continued to give certain Vayros David. At Gizot, Gewisin Yonim, Terem Vishtal Kusei. Erefa, it follows Lafisa. Ukenira Beteva Benayoto. Kenira Beteva Benayotam Achashuvim. So to bring a raya, the tuik of hayeshes, or that's the inyan amalucha, prevents and is by etzem moving mavdil bein zeh lezeh. It doesn't cause a inyan of achtas at all. This is a dover. I had to call a musa haskel derech hagav. Okay, nira beteva b'nei adam achashurim shekol echad. Yesh v'dov v'fnei atzmai v'gedula v'chashivas b'yoysa. Well, each one of them is a dover with a chashivas b'yoysa, with a very special chashivas, and it could be as amatzias that they are taken, very important. Each one with a remarkable chashivas. Lo yuchol lovei lidei chibur ve'achtas im zulos hagodol v'achoshu. He's not able to come Lidei chibur v'achtes im zulosei agodel v'choshu. In other words, both of them are agodel v'choshu, and it's not that the other guy is not agodel v'choshu. Now, davke mishum zeh, davke because we recognize that both of them are agodel v'choshu, and they recognize also, they're aware of the fact that the other guy is agodel v'choshu. Therefore, they're not able to come lidei chibur v'achtes im zulose agodel v'choshu. In other words, notice the lotion here that they can't come lidei chibur, and immediately you get chibur, then you can get even a musik from achtes. But if you don't have chibur, then there's no way you're going to get to achtes. Chibur means that they can join together in a certain, what you might call, mishutefes dike pu'ula, or how do you call it, cooperation, one with the other. And that's ulai. We can suggest that that's derech ulai. Masha Marumas in Tanya, in Perek Lamed Beis, the Alter Rebbe, he sort of says several lashonas which indicate different daragas in the inyan of the sachtas of Yidden. And he says, first of all, he brings the lashon of the pasuk in Shir Hashirim. Kula Matimois. It's a lesson in Shir Hashirim. Kula Matimois, and then he says Va'avechad lekolona. Mitzad zeh Kulam Achim Mamish Racha Gufim Mecholokim. It's like almost three different lashonos. And so the whole inyan at Kula Matimois, that's a beginning. And Kula Matimois is like these dovetail carpenter and things that are dovetail, that they sort of fit into one another. In other words, they're able to be mishchaber and they join one with the other, but each one has its own milah, or they join together. Well, then there's hope that eventually they'll be joined an even further inyan, that they can be mishkaled and even further inyan that avech or the kolona, and then there's an even further inyan that racha gufim really it's mamish oisa hanishom, or oisa ha-inyan mamish, and it's only the gufim mishkaling. If you have, first of all, kula matimis, then you can hope you're going to reach the rest. And where there's a chibur, then it can be active. And it's interesting that Dafki in this week, and Dafki a night or two before 2 B'Av, we just have to mention that, just that lashon chibur v'actus, because they're over in the drushim of 2 B'Av. Yes, Rabban Gamliel, we stated in the mission, Rabban Gamliel Oimer. It's interesting, Rabban Gamliel is up to Rabban Shimon Gamliel. It's Lehoy Yom Tevin L'Yisrael, Kechamish also B'Av, K'Yom HaKippurim, and he brings there that B'nois Yerushalayim, Hoy Yitzis V'choylus B'Kromim, and the Rebbe brings there that's even for Actus Yisrael. And there's certain Maimonides from the Rebbe of that whole union where he talks about the for actors. As much, like we just said, he goes from one dag l'mayla mi'asheni, and he says that the union is a kulam metzias achas peshuta mamish. Metzias achas peshuta mamish. As he does that. Just totally. I leave that for your gentlemen. For your suitable is bonanas, but over, aye, be'efo, anatno, binyan te, avach upon him, says the Rebbe that you can have chibur, then you'll have actors. But if you can't have chibur, they taste. He said, I'm sorry, he's a choshav, been to choiv, my chibur, I can't. I can't join with him, I'm sorry. Ukemoi beis malachim, oi beis sorim gedolim. In other words, emes sorim, kemoi shahema gedolim be'etzem be'yoser. They're really the gedolim be'etzem in a varied way. How they go be'yoser, the tacha be'emes anoshim gedolim. Lo yuchlu lischabe or lishached. Notice, if this is chabe, then you'll get to actors. Lefi, shekol echad teifes mokim be'atzmai. Each one of them is teifes mokim be'atzmai. Hu yesh godo be'atzmai. Look at this. The kula kolei mavish chachivi coming. In other words, it's a all these other, guys, all the other people, they have absolutely no matzias. Kula mekalei chashivei, ve'ein anoisen mokim klal zulotza. Doesn't give a place. V'lo yuchal lisboil klal zulotza. And here we're going to see later, a few lines later down, we're going to ask a kasha, why do those two sporas link together? If we're going to say, we'll see, but we won't bother ourselves too much with the kasha right now. But it's interesting that the Rebbe says that there are two things. First of all, the other person is kiloi chashiva, and absolutely no matzias like Abiyim whatsoever. The nakuda is that yesh b'zeh tzedek. I mean, if you take the inyam mamish etzem, how do you call it, analysis, in the etzem nitur ha'inyan le'emes, ein l'chanam ishtache b'yoysa dike chashivas dike. Ishtache chashiv b'yoysa, and l'gabiyim andere Menschen sind And I will say, why in the yochel is? It's a very fascinating hemshech of the lashon. Yeah, Eden is a machen klau, but lo yochel is boil klau. Lo yisbel is much stronger. Lo yisbel, nemen we weg van daar. Het kule collega shiva. I get to say, well, these guys don't, I'm sorry, they just don't have any place for me, and that's it. They're not my valuable me. Like I heard once a story with I told you guys, Rogachover once a lot of Bochum was stopping to hear what he had to say. Bochum from the band. So the Gabbai called out and he said, "Stop nicht da." He said, "Do nicht da ka Rebbe." He said, "Stop nicht." Do nicht da ka Rebbe. The Rogachover was then, he was going to give her a pill. So the Rogachover smiled and he looked at him and he said, "Sollen Sie stoppen?" He said, let them stop. He said, "Was ich will reden, es sei wie Nista for say." He said, "What I'm going to talk is anyway Nista." The Rebbe says Nista. That's the joke. He said, the Rebbe says Nista. He said, "What I'm going to be talking about by saying Nista." What he was saying was, you wanted me, you asked me, so I'm going to talk about it. Finish better. And if for what we hear about the Rogachover, it's kilo, it's mativ, the nusach. Al chopani, Elafisa komt thuis, that is takir, to a certain extent he's right, that these people have no chashivas. Aber he says, lo yuchel lisbel klau ezra. That's a union what's going to be Deurishpia for Wushita. Is a siman that deep inside the Gedula, epicito episa. Had ik heard? There's an old saying, something in deep inside the Gedula is like Kitty Boy. Therefore, I never said Gedula also knows a lot of people not be'erach. Moshe Rabbeinu knew everybody was lo be'erach. I became peak forget. Moshe Rabbeinu was even though he knew everybody was
God of Emes.
Huh?
Was God of Emes?
Yeah, but there's like an akuda. Yeah, it's like an akuda in the middle. Yeah, it's like Mendel Vitebsky used to say about himself that he used to write, he used to sign himself a shofel b'emes. And that's what he used to write, a shofel b'emes. So it's a sign of seine Chassidim. You're not told what's the matter. See, he saw it. He used to also write, he wrote up some letter, a shofel b'emes. So some of these other people saw this and they said that's shofel b'emes. So Rav Mendel, they called him in. Rav Mendel was taki a shofel, but he was a tremendous, honor. But he wrote the shofel b'emes. So he said, "Well, Rabbi, I see that you do it." So Rav Mendel said, "Gibachtik." He said, "Be careful." He says, "You've been a shofel b'emes." He says, "Oh, be careful." He said, "Could be that you're b'emes a shofel." It's anyway, says the Rebbe, "Ava b'nei Adam aktanim, people who are be'erach, meaning ein achanami, they're be'emes ketanim. Kol shehem ketanim bi'atzmom." You see, we're moving closer to the nakuda. What they are ketanim bi'atzmam. Yoyser yuchlu l'shchava u'l'sachit yachad. L'chava u'l'sachit. In other words, for boys, because here the Lashon is that they're taki ketanim, but they're also ketanim bi'atzmam. They're very good that they are be'emes ketanim. And that's a big nesoya. That the more you move into godless, it's harder to realize that you're talking a God, but you have good reasons to always to be a kotel. But Ketanim are much more able to be aware of it. Lefi shekol echad ein teifes mokeim v'yesh klal b'atzma. He's not teifes mokeim, and he doesn't have any. He's not a yesh klal b'atzma. Hari hu neisen mokeim l'zolosei. He gives a place to the other person. Ubekal unichna ubotel lishkolel im zulase. Im shehu hifuchei. Even though he might be the very opposite of that person when it comes to what you might call midas and character and all sorts of his expression. He's biduk hafuch from the zweite. Avavu pikein. Now notice the expression. All these terms are going to later help us to understand what is be'emes to have dealt. What's it be'emes to chilik? Now the Rebbe says here that since that he's not teifes mokim, he's able to be nice and mokim l'zolosei. That's one thing. And then he said ubekal unichna ubotel lishkololim zolosei shuhuipu. Even though he's mamish hipuch, he can be very good. Now notice that, but there's two things there. First of all, he's nice and mokim. He finds a place for the other guy. Aber it's easy for him to be nichna uboto. In other words, that if you really want to join up with the Zweite, then you've got to be nichna uboto. In other words, you've got to understand how legabi that Zweite, there's inyonim in you which make you absolutely batil, and therefore you give yourself away. You're talking nicht na be'emes. In other words, that the meat is in van achters, like we saw earlier, dependent on a hargosha, that I, without the zweite, without the dritte, the vierte, I don't have any shlemus, I don't have any being. I don't really have the right way to exist if I don't have everybody else. There's two inyonim. There's nichna, which you become this, and then you become botel. In other words, you become surrendered, as you might say, given away, and then you become botel altogether, and then you're lishkala limzo, and you don't even worry that he's mamish a different character to you altogether. You see how he and you together need one elevator. וכמוי בייס עניים שפלים בטיבם ונמוכי רוח. He said two עניים what they're shvelim betivom, but they're also nimuchei ruach. Afu pi shehein beis hafochim betivom. It could be that two completely different people. This is how they call it, a gvura dimension. This is a chesvas. Another talk match altogether. Nonetheless, says the Rebbe, they will be yishabru v'yahavu ze et ze levato atzmoi kol echad mipnei chaver. Each one of them will be bottled and mevatel himself legabe the Zweite. Now here's another mile. Up to now we're talking about bnei Adam ketanim. Now we're saying ani. So what's it the mile of an oni? Wasn't a mile of an oni? It's brought down and said that an oni doesn't need any his bon and his klal to know his shiftless. He doesn't have to think klal about ein shiftless. He just lives with his shiftless. He knows that he has absolutely kilo. No machi. And if I said the Rebbe, kemoi beis anim shor betivo. They're shvelim already betivo. And it was not that they had to be misbeinen in their shiftless, and they had to come to realize their shiftless or their. No, oni is be'etzem tivei. He's a shofel. And if I said the Rebbe, nemuchei ruach. They completely, how do you call it? Nemuchei. They're used to people treading on them. And therefore, they have no problem with treading on them, treading on themselves. Afu pishein beis afochim betivom yishabru v'yahavu ze eze Levatel atzmi korach b'nei chaverai. Ameres Apele, yeah, we have to say that's moise of another Indian, like what we're talking about before. Where a person came to his realization that he's a koton, and it's a mile that he have to do with the Tveita, that could be through certain inyanim in his body. And maybe it could be that leish mino itim, that's nechlash, or it's nishtane, lo tamid boito wie sagt man mit derselben much of ruach. Oh, but where he's on, he said, on is this beteva. On is it's a broken mensch be'etzem, and he's a normal charuach. He would never lift up his, he would never have any problem. And if he noticed that he's not only he's chava, but he even loves the other guy. We didn't say that before. There wasn't that he's yehav at Hasheni, that we didn't use yet. Here we see the lashon ahava, and when ahava is a infa. Had ik ook teken van Argoshe and Gishmak in Yeremis Matthias. You notice how all these illustrations and each expression takes us a little bit closer to a deeper mashkona. Now he says, "V'chein beis nirdofim." Twee mensen, but they're fleeing from danger. Had ik ook, they're fleeing for lives. A nirdof is somebody that, they're after him. And they're both of them fleeing. Here we don't even say that they're betelim and they're misachtim. They just love one day. The other, their whole existence doesn't exist anymore. Technically speaking, they don't have their chances, as you might call them, living are dependent purely on whether they're going to get away. Near Duffy. Or sitting in jail, or sitting in POW, what do you call prisoner of war, stuff like that. They know that that their whole Matthias is mushal. Therefore, they are malachatchila uyevim zeh mipnei abitl v'hachnua. There's this tremendous bitl. Kilo, they realize just how much they don't have any life anymore. And that draws them together with Derech Mamela. Now here it's interesting that the word bittul comes before the Achnoah. And when we took Aniyim, he said nikna ubota. And here he says bottle bittul v'Achnoah. In other words, that the Ike here is the bittul. And I must say that maybe we can give b'derech halotza. B'derech halotza, we could give a dugma. I don't know if you ever remember when you're a kid, and you come to school late, but not just, you missed on a minute or something, but your mom is late. Yeah, I remember there's a tremendous pachad in the kid. That's waiting. We get up to face the headmaster. Can be called in the headmaster's office, and who knows what's for schreckliche Gezeires, and the kid is mamish to brought. But if you find if you meet up with another kid that he's in the same matter, this is they mamish. It could be that they were the worst enemies. In school, could be there was some geworfen Steine ein auf die andere, und ich weiß mit was. Yeah. They're in that matter, that all of a sudden they become two, loving buddies. They say, I'll support you and I'll look after you. Don't worry, you support me, and I'll support you, and I'll praise you, and I'll help you, and I'll try to point out them. And so they both, walk with a new sort of hope and a new take him into the headmaster. Have you ever noticed it? I remember seeing that when there was a kid that you come late, if you had somebody else, all of a sudden the Av and the Chibur that there was between us, this was Mevatel all in your under might have existed. No, it's the thing, he was your enemy or anything that didn't exist. And what the Rebbe says that the Etzem Inyan, which is Mevatel, your whole Matthias, well, that causes a an Av, a Mamela, and a Kil Chibur in the Beatles even before the Ach no. Vadugma Mise, says the Rebbe. Yeah, Beshvira is the Teihu. In other words, what you might say, the dogma that we began with, but the Chashuvim B'Yosha, not the Anim. The Anim not going to come later.
It seems like it's not so obvious that Anim automatically mitchavim. The same thing by people who are in Metzav.
It's not obvious?
Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes...
Two people were mamish fleeing for their lives.
We see in Yerushalayim,
in
the middle of the Chorban, the Yidden were fighting each other.
Yeah, we see the difficulty is, you understand? We see, we live mamish in that matzav right now. Unfortunately, this Tisha B'Av was mamish as I don't like to say it to people, but you see, the tzara is, that what happens is, that there's certain groups of people that they don't realize that they're nirdofim. They don't realize that the matzav is, ad kedikach. Yeah, therefore they have all sorts of shittas, and all sorts of inyonim, all sorts of things. If we do that, then we'll just be okay.
Mendel said
they don't really understand advifo is nirdofim. When nirdofim means when never rachmanin klal. The axe is already fallen, and as if you manage to get away, and then you know good that you flee. Or the kolui that the axe didn't fall. There's some people say, no, what's happening? You know, people walking around and they say, who cut around?
But Mendel said that in prison.
Oh, but can you understand what I'm trying to say? Nirdofim means that when the axes Rahman already fallen, and they're out here.
but Mendel said in prison there were people who fought over the food. But Mendel said in prison under the Bolsheviks, there were people who would fight over the food, and even kill each other, hurt each other.
Cook, my dear boy, there's an old saying in Yiddish. So kein Mann ist geprüft werden. You know what that means? Here we're talking about two nirdofim. But, you know, it could be that they got food in their bags, and it could be they got weapons, or, they're being chased by somebody greater than them. Or the people in the situation of Mendel described, they were dying of starvation. So, that's not a marshal for anything. This is just, that's the end of all possible things. I mean, we should never know. Imam says that, I mean, every Indian's got a certain, I mean, your question is not completely ruled out. I'm not completely. Therefore, what I did was to try and move it a shloud further. That nirdofim is people that the axe has already fallen, and they got away, and nonetheless, it's very likely that they're being chased. You follow? That's an good. And unfortunately, there's so many days and so many meshugad goyim. And so many just absolute zaydim rachmanim that are nimta in the picture here. That just they don't think. They think, rachmanim. Rebbe says the Rebbe, the dogma misebes filas the teyu, the mitzad tuike vayeshes vaisnasses vareimim is yisero. Now we're going to see there's reimamus and there's reimamus yisero. Shoya b'chol sfira ad shasfira zulosa lo yoteifes mokim klal. Liyais noisen la mokim gamkein. Now, this is only the beginning. This is only the first statement. In other words, that the spheres in two days nasas never gave any mokim. We didn't reach the Seivel part of it yet. We're leading into the Nimshal. So there was the Rebbe noticed that the spheres are two tuike fayeshes. Now we're going to see that this idea of toikev is very important. Toikev, like a starkheid, koch in Yeshus. Vaishnasis, Yisnasis means self-elevation. Vareimim is Yeseda, an extra, a very special type of reimamis. So, because we're going to see that there can be a reimamis which is mamish. I mean, that's like the key to what we're going to read. That there can be a reimamis which is not mitzad ishnasis. It's a reimamis hamidya. It says, Shoya b'chol sfira, ad sh'asfira zul osa, lo yotefes mokim kla. It's absolutely botel. Liyesh neisen la mokim, gamkim. In other words, that if it would have been tefes mokim a little bit, he would have given it a place. Well, it's not tefes mokim. He doesn't give it any place. We're going to see in a minute, but that's maybe not so possible, because if something's mummy doesn't have any place by you, absolutely, then was out there to give it a place. Well, I'm talking about the beetle, it's bottle. וכמו ספירס החסד הויה בקיץ הרייממס בייסה. שזה הרבה שזה עניין שהויה זה בקינס מלוכה. In other words, if immediately you talk about chesed, you get rid of the malucha. I mean, chesed is not a kingship. You makes the chesed for a kingship. So he said the inyan for the kingship in chesed is the reimamus b'yisa. In other words, the inyan in the chesed of this teikif hayeshes, this koch in the inyan of my Matthias, whatever it is. So the Rebbe said that's what we call malucha here. That's what we're calling malucha. Because otherwise we couldn't chesed to malchus. And he said the rak ano emleik. In other words, what is a em as a king? Like we saw, he says rak ano emleik. There's no two kings. That's what the whole shaila is. Eich David nosen mokem l'shleimek. Erefa, says the Rebbe, the ganze amitis inyan, what we're talking about here, v'rimim is yeseda in Malchus, it says rak ano emlik, rak ano emlik, and that's the Malchus in a sphere like chesed. In other words, she said, ani v'afsi, only my inyan, ein inyan acher klal, and that's called a inyan for Malchus. Now we don't mean here what's mavur, becoming a kemas and says Malchus shebachesed, a Malchus shebachesed is the koach hagilui shebachol sfira. That's another in Malchus. Here we mean that toikev of rakano. That's a in a king which also just purely mitzad the techniques of a king. That's how he is. Rakano. That's what we mean here by the Malchus in Chesed. Not Malchus Shebechesed, or Bechesed how she's a Malchus. The whole Chesed is a Malchus.
So, you're saying is that Tohu never existed.
Oh, is it?
Because if it couldn't survive, it couldn't get together for you to second.
Yeah. I see what you mean. In other words, it never happened. It broke before it happened. Yes. Well, we have to say that Robadukah, because it's written over there in the pasuk by Yim Leiva. There was some tears. So we have to say that Einachanami. I understand what you're asking. What you're asking is a cue ikru the dinner kopircha. I think it was right from the beginning. The whole thing never started. Okay. Not bad. I understand your line of thinking, but there's a lot of bedukach. It isn't and isn't. In other words, that the Eibishter, for sure, he let the spheres of Teyu come about and he let the sphere happen. It's only B'Ratzeinu that the whole thing happened. Come over. And that's what we say so manas livnois. I heard there was some story about a choshev that they clapped him. Where was it? Somewhere. There was some Hungarians or something. They were trying to stop Machalal Shabbos. He was a choshev, he was a big fellow, and he some of these friars that were big Machalal Shabbos came out and they tried to attack him. He just picked them up like stones and he threw them on the ground. He was on top of the other. So the police came and got him, and it was Friday because they were being, how do you call it, they were complaining against Chilul Shabbos. They went on Friday. And the police came and they arrested him. They put him in a sort of a jail, like a lockup sort of a place. And he broke down the wall. He was such a gibber. It was like a temporary place, like Shimshon a gibber. That he just he broke down the wall and he got out. So it was a whole thing. Later the police came after him and a whole mass and a whole geschäft. He got himself out of it after all. He hid himself as they hid him, and a few other people got broken bones that they tried to get at him. He was a giver, a meaty. All of a sudden he shows up one day by the Rav in secret. He comes into the Rav and he said, "Listen here, Rav," he said, "I got to have a tikkun." He said, "You have to help me." He said, "I was Machal Shabbos, broke a wall on Shabbos." He said, "I broke a wall on Shabbos." He said, He said, "I Seisa Rabbinim with Shabbos." Anyway, just trying to tell a joke to get you guys smile, but something. So we see that there's a inyan from Seisa Almanas Livna. Seisa Almanas Livna. And my mother says, the Rebbe, I come to us that, I'm sorry, we're back with your Shaila. So, the whole thing was, the whole inyan was Livnei Almanas Listeh. In this particular Livnei Almanas Listeh, the Kavanah was to break it. It was built. And even more than that, what do you say to me, enough tiva? The whole inyan from Bechira is something that nobody ever understands. And the Alter Rebbe says in Pasha Moya, and look what the Alter Rebbe says, Mamish Atzmas. The Alter Rebbe throws it back into the Atzmas. He says, this the Atzmas, you can't possibly understand Bechira. But don't come to that the whole inyan, on the way down, the Eibishter gave a place that eventually you would have Bechira. He made a world where it was in his knowledge and that's the same old kasha. Everything was in his knowledge. Nonetheless, it's not a stira. Yeah. And he actually made it that it actually happened. I know that there were spheres, and they insisted that it must be because very fun. And they blew. They blew. So you might say, well, maybe they didn't know. Maybe the spheres of Gonish to give word. Only that. Maybe I do Roxanne. Okay. You remember the story I told you of Noam said, Tif, you know, deep inside the train, there's this little horse that carries the train, you know what I mean? So deep inside the spheres of Torah, they knew ganz good was. They knew what was there. They knew. Just like the Bnei Aaron knew. Matal Telegilid. None of you didn't know what was it. Im lo yadu klal, was it the kavan? Them skoilums. Im lo yadu, was it the kavan? They knew. But it was just so immense. That Shukah, that Lakus, was just so immense they could. And yet it's called a chayt. The same thing with the spirits Tatim. The same thing. They knew, and the Eibusha gave them, and yet, and that was mitzad. We're going to see that they had reimamas, but you got to know how to take your reimamas, and you got to know what is reimamas and how to take it. That's like the beginning of the whole Bechira. And the whole inyan and the Shvili and Toyu is a tremendously key inyan in the whole Kabbalah Arizal. Big thing. V'haraya. I mean, this is about the second time it's been mentioned here. Well, this time Barifet in the Semsha, and in Chelik Beis, in Chelik Gimel, you'll find it again and again. It comes up every now and then. Nachon, Spheres Tatev. But that's one of the essential messages of the Arizal. That's one of the Ludas Rabbi Sein and the Siyenu. That's one of the essential messages. Okay, so and that's it. So that is the Rebbe. And where are we? Sheve, Derach Anoim, Roya Sphiris Agura, Tevis Mokim, Liten Lo Gamkim Mokim Limli. But Oites, Shaloya Yochel Lisboa, Sphiris Agura. Now notice, Oites, this is a further thing. Lafisha, he Evach Mohusala, Gamre. In other words, he's not going to put up with the Indian from Sphiris Agura because it's Hepach Mohusar Lagamre. Now, the Ashake Alkane is Ma, Hepach Mohusi, I can't be saved with it. So there was a cause who mitzad hayeshes chulu. Or midas tetikun, upchinas a beetle, leipchinas hisnasis. But later we're going to see that that's emes hisnasis. V'hainu shegama mida ha'ofchias teifus mokim, listen loy gam kein mokim. There's teifus mokim, to give it also a mokim. וגם יש בהם הביטל והכנוע לשחד או לשחבר עם המידה ההפכיוס. I want to hurry a little bit here. I want to leave you guys on cruel. I want to leave you with a kasha. And now that I was going to say, be in, now that I was going to say, it's not verstandig. Now to the end of this whole chapter, we're going to be Isaac now on this kasha. And that was it's nicht verstandig. Why do you say two inyanim? L'oi neisen mokim and ena yochel Lisbon. I can imagine pik verkeerd. There's no place by me. Yeah? A pik verkeerd. Neisen mokim. It's bottled by me, but that is a bit what's happening? And Adrabah. Yeah, l'chera is a groiskeit of Mishaloi. Yeah, he sees that the thing has no Mokim Klau, no, how do you call it, Tophesis Mokim Klau. On the contrary, let it be. It's not going to in any way bevalbel me, and it's not going to be bevalbel any emes. On the contrary, let it serve its part in the emes. Yeah. Help it along, give it play. And that's what we find. That emes Gedula does do that. So there was a little bit, why do you keep saying to me, no, that in Torah there was a nice and mokim, and Eina Yochel Lisba, was it?
There's Eina nice and mokim, it means you say, Yesh no mokim.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. Barich. That's what I'm trying to say. He says, I don't know, why shouldn't it be? Let it be. And verkeerd, we're going to see that Lachera Emes a grace of mensch, he lets everything have a certain place. Yeah. And he said, yeah. So why do we say that? No, that Davki the Indian from Rimus and Gadlus Amiti has said that doesn't have any mokim. V'yal kain any yochel is boilet. Why would that be? Why would those two things go together? They should be say so one here. Or al chaponim, they don't go together. And that's the kasha what the Rabbi has. And he's going to start a whole teretz until the end of the chapter. That he's going to strengthen the kasha 50 times over. The way you got emes or reimamas, then everything has a place. Yeah, on the contrary, and so we're going to come to a sort of a picture that's going to lead us into a whole new musik. The two different types of reimamas. So there's a reimamas which once it says that something has no place, it's shrill the vatir everything. And there's another reimamas which b'diuk hafuch is mekarot. So we'll see about that in a minute.
If you look at Teva B'nai Adam, the people that a person can't stand, can't tolerate, is normally the person who is like him.
Yankim?
A person I can't tolerate is someone who is exactly like me.
Right.
Not someone who is the very opposite of me. It's someone who is the exact opposite of Maus. Not really.
Yeah, well, you say it depends.
Lots of us makom actually.
Yeah, he's another maslul.
Two families, two people who are very, very similar.
Yeah. They were talking about people that, yesh l'mezeshu Havana or Chaponim Yachas Erki Zelazeh. Here we're talking about our Reimamis, which is Indonesia Mokim Cloud, to other things and to other entities. So the Rebbe's point is that l'choira, dafke because nothing has any error. What's the idea? Let it have a place. You can give it what's called and that's what he uses the expression in the Hemshech, the Kasha. He says miktasar. You can give it a miktasar. It doesn't really have any emisar, but you can let it be and let it on the contrary. Bring it in. Make it take part of in the game, as they say. That's what we're aiming at. Well, your shaila is even when there's a certain yachas between the people. Yeah, as long as he's in another maslu, he doesn't bother me. Or somebody who's marish like me, then I got to watch him. Well, that's already in another yachas. Over here, it's a yachas of bittul amiti. Dafke bittul amiti allows everything to have a place. Why do we say that the Indian to you was in Azar, even that it was ein asayu? That if I say it doesn't have any place by me, arop. Tony Shom can play. So I was going to say, it has a famous expression, it's krikt of Amalek. There's a little weeny worm somewhere in the rainbow. Something's not right with the rainbow. Now, who was it that said about krikt of Amalek? Was it the Maggid or something? I'm not sure how did it go. You remember what was his name? The one that told me the Maggid that he went a bit funny and became a
what?
He became a shikha. No, the whole thing. Remember? And there's different.
The Alter Rebbe.
Yeah, there's different girsayos as to whether he really dropped off the kavanah or whether he didn't.
Volpe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think it was the Volpe. Yeah. It's they say that they went to ask the Maggid or they asked the Alter Rebbe, and he said it's krikt of Amalek. He used the expression as krikt of Amalek. But just to make it a little complex, is that after he was nifta, or when he went away from someone, he left a bag behind. And they found in the bag, they found ksorim from the turtles with the Maggid. Yeah. The whole thing from my side. Anyway, suffice it to say that that's severe. Or Rav Nochum's skills would be deep inside is a plain feather. deep inside. Good. All right, guys. Have a good evening. Go together.
Ja,